Shubha Mudgal, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Shubhaji, it's really an honor for me to speak to you today. You are really a living legend, and now you're really giving back to the world of music. You are, of course, become part of ATM Academy. Please tell us more about this, ma'am.
The Academy has given me the opportunity to do is to create a syllabus for the vocal Hindustani classical music course. That means I get to write the course and decide what rags, what compositions the students will learn, and also how the entire process will go ahead. So that's the wonderful opportunity that the Academy has given to me. And of course, I have learned in both the Guru Shishya tradition and also in the institutional style of learning and teaching. But this is a new way of sharing knowledge, this online format, which we've all had to take recourse to in the last few years, and more so in the last 2 years. But the idea is to take up all the strengths that this format offers and try to see how one can use it to share this wonderful system of Hindustani classical music with wonderful, eager young students.
So what would you like to tell those aspirants or the students who are watching this, or that what is that one thing you want to tell everybody that they should know about singing apart from riyaz or practice?
Well, I think, it's for me, what I can share from personal experience is that it's a whole wonderful world of Hindustani classical music, which offers you many, many surprises, many, many treasures as you go along. So if you're alert and if you're ready to find those treasures, it's quite a treasure hunt, and one in which everybody gets something. So normally in a treasure hunt, there's one winner or perhaps two winners, and the rest of the competitors sort of get thrown out. But this is a journey which gives treasures to everyone who is willing to take the opportunity and who is willing to work hard and journey with the music.
You really captured nation's heart with the song Apke Sawan. And before that, it was Ali Mere Angna, and there was also Man Ke Majire. A lot has changed in the indie music space. Do you think in the coming future, we will see Shubha Mudgal making a sort of a comeback with maybe Apke Sawan 2.0?
Well, I think, it's always pointless, I feel, for an artist to repeat something. But the fun part of a good song is that you can keep singing it and others can keep singing it and keeping it alive. So recently I had the opportunity to sing the same song, which you talk about, with the wonderful artist Raftar. So, and that gave it a new, completely new avatar. So I think, those opportunities, fortunately, keep coming my way and I keep enjoying those. But really a repeat of the same thing, no, that's not what I would really want to do.
When you broke out in the indie space way back in 90s, you also went and given your voice to few songs for some movies, namely Aks.
Very few.
Very few.
Very, very few. I think, playback is a very specialized kind of form. And I think there are many, many specialists who do a wonderful job. And I have not got that kind of orientation or training. So when somebody in a movie wants a song that requires, let's say, a classical touch or a certain kind of rendering, then they come to me. And if I'm comfortable singing that song, then it's a wonderful experience. But just because movies are so popular, to want to be part of that without having that specialization or without really fitting in is, I feel, pointless. Jahan wo space hai, wahan I feel I've got the opportunity and I've enjoyed it. But there are other songs that I could never have sung, So why try and sing what you can't sing?
I have many questions about music, but before that, I'm very keen to know what is the difference between Indian classical music and Carnatic music? And aren't they part of India, and shouldn't they be called as North Indian and South Indian classical music?
Well, actually, that they are part of a system of music. These are two very big kind of tributaries, and they both rely on three key aspects in the context of vocal music. So rag, tal, and sahitya. whether it is Hindustani music or whether it is Carnatic music. As you said, one comes from supposedly from the northern part of India, but is popular even in, let's say, states like Karnataka.
Sure.
Yeah, and the other is called Carnatic music, but both employ rag, tal, and sahitya in different ways. So they are part of one very big system, as are other tributaries of the same system, but perhaps not as well known or not as popular as these two very giant rivers, you know.
Don't you think a raga should be treated like a living being? And because if someone who nurtures it well end up becoming a great singer, and those who don't will be left behind.
Well, that's what happens actually. You get to know the language, the grammar, the vocabulary, the techniques that are employed in this wonderful system. And as you go along, there is a system of teaching. There is what is called a silsila of teaching, a different kind of discipline. Different masters teach their students, different gharanas teach their students in different silsilas. But there is a sense of discipline. And as you go along, you get this ability to present a rag spontaneously. And those who can do it very well are considered masters. Those who can teach very well become great gurus. Sometimes you have the wonderful match of a great performer as well as a great teacher. And of course, there can be anybody who chooses to listen and just bask in the sheer pleasure of listening.
Do you think it's possible to have the same lyrics on two different ragas? And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very often you will find compositions with either very similar or almost identical, literature.
So, would you like to give me some example, please? Like 2 lines in different ragas, so that we all know.
So, there is, for example, give me a line, like, let's say, give me any line that you can think of.
I say Garaj Baras Badal Banayo. Sorry, that's the line.
Okay, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
So I can sing it in a rag which has nothing to do with, let's say, the monsoon. I can sing it Garaj Baras Savan Banayo. I can sing it like this, or I can sing it in Garaj Baras Savan Banayo. I use the same lyrics in 2 different rags.
Oh, nice. Shivaji, we're of course talking about music and imparting knowledge. Would you like to give us a small crash course of singing in terms of understanding of how the world of music works? So I have some terms which are basically used, we commonly hear, but we need the meaning of them. So let's start with how the musical scale of Indian classical music works with these 7 notes as Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa. They are short forms, right? They are Shadja,
Yes.
Rishabh, Gandharv,
Yes.
Madhyam, Pancham, Dhaivat, and Nishad.
Nishad, yes, that's right. And why do you use nicknames? Yeah. Are you asking that?
Yeah, yes.
So when you're singing something, let's say, just when you are speaking these names, see Shadj, Rishabh, Gandhar. Now, if you want to say it really fast, you're going to get into a tongue twister. Whereas if you say Sarega, 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 Sarigama, Sarigama, you can say it very much faster. And that's why we use this kind of Sargam rather than the full names.
What is the difference between a Tumri and a Dadra?
Tumri is a form that was associated with Kathak dance, and it is said to have emerged because there were compositions created which could be sung alongside dance. That's where Tumri is said to have started. One of the beliefs that Tumri originated with this association with dance. And Dadra is a quicker form of the same larger genre called Tumri, but Dadra is a slightly faster paced and form of Tumri, and also it uses tals like Dadra and Keherwa, which are in a sense smaller tals, and are used also in folk music.
I read somewhere that a Tumri is a semi-classical style of singing with lyricism and romantic text, Tumris have lyrics like "Kya karo sajni aye na balam hamar."
Yes, they do. They are, a lot of the Tumri lyrics are based on Shringar, on love, longing, waiting, pining for someone, or being with a loved one. But yes, they have this element of Shringar, and they started with an association with dance at a time when singers were also dancers. So very often the singer herself would sing the Tumri, and then accompanied by other musicians, she would also dance to it.
What is a Jugalbandi? Is it different from a duet song?
A Jugalbandi can be between a vocalist and an instrumentalist, can also be between two instrumentalists or more. I mean, Jugal is usually two, but sometimes you even have three people or a quartet playing. But Jugalbandi usually is two main artists coming together and sharing their work on stage.
What is a Tarana?
Tarana is a form of Hindustani classical music. It's a one song form where you don't use actual lyrics. You use syllables which you may feel are meaningless. For example, nom tom tananana or tanaderena. Now these syllables don't really have a meaning. So these kind of syllables are used in a tarana, and sometimes in a tarana you also have a few lines of a Farsi couplet.
Would you like to give us an example, like if you have used in one of your songs?
I haven't sung any of these like in a track that you would remember.
Yeah.
But for example, it sounds something like this. Tadare tadani tadani tadare tada. So something like this.
What is the difference between a khayal and a dhrupad?
There are two different forms of Hindustani classical music where the voice is used differently, compositions are different, and I haven't studied Dhrupad, but I have studied Khayal. The key elements remain the same of Rag, Tal, and literature, but completely different way of using the voice, completely different way of using elaboration. And Dhrupad is supposed to be a very much more austere form than Khayal.
Isn't khayal allows you to improvise while you're singing? Is that?
Dhrupad does too. That is the hallmark of all Ragdari music, whether it is Dhrupad, Khayal, or Tumri Dadra, all allow you to elaborate and improvise spontaneously. So, but in different ways.
You are really somebody who wants to change mindset when it comes to music. You were, of course, part of a committee of the NCERT that was working towards the inclusion of arts in a more holistic manner in the school curriculum. It clearly shows you really want to change the people's mindset when it comes to classical music.
Yes, I think it's high time that some changes were brought about, and I'm not suggesting that we should be in competition with anyone. I think very often different forms of music, the presentation is very spectacular. The kind of shows that are put up, let's say, by well-known bands from across the world, or even from by artists from, let's say, who are singing film music. There's a lot of, it's almost quite a spectacle, with huge production values attached to it. Contrary to that, Hindustani classical music has always been heard in smaller spaces. At one point of time, it was almost like chamber music. So the jalsas and the mehfils that took place were not for too many people. Today, there are a few festivals which have thousands, like 15, 20,000 people listening to Hindustani classical music. But by and large, it was also nurtured by small music circles and groups of music lovers who came together and paid small subscriptions. मतलब आज की तारीख में तो आपको हंसी आएगी सुन के that somebody is paying a subscription of 500 rupees in a year for listening to classical music throughout the year. Now, obviously, the money that is available is not enormous. So are they going to pay the artists, or are they going to book a huge swanky auditorium with dazzling lights and huge stacks of audio equipment? That just isn't possible. But I think it's necessary to find space for each of these forms, not be in competition with each other, but all the time try and see if one can engage. I don't have a formulaic way. I can't tell you, please do this to support classical music. I think everybody needs to find their own space, their own preference for music. If they don't like classical music, no problem. Maybe they can listen to some other form of music. But I think it's a very healthy suggestion to actually be engaged with the arts in one way or the other, not necessarily as a performer, not necessarily as a patron, but involve yourself with the arts, because the benefits of that have been proven time and again.
At an early level, like from
Yes.
So
yes,
how much
absolutely.
progress was made when you were part of that committee?
See, I was part of that committee in 2005. And since then, as you know, it's now 2021. So it was only recently that the education policy really said that, okay, let's include these suggestions and have arts in mainstream education. But saying it is one thing, and making it possible and making it happen is totally another thing. For example, where are the books to introduce music as a subject? And do we want more books? Do we want our children to carry another load of books in their already heavy backpacks or their school bags? Where are the different games that we should have? Where are the different posters that we should have to be used as educational tools? So the resources need to be made and worked on. And having done that once, there's still the necessity to review what has been done and to start all over again. Ek din mein to hoti nahi hai baatein. So, you make a book and then you realize, no, maybe there's another way of teaching. So let's rehaul those books. Let's rewrite those books. I think it's very necessary to keep experimenting and to keep reviewing the results of those experiments to really be able to make any headway.
What do you think has changed in the music scene from the time when you started in now?
बहुत कुछ बदल गया है. There's really too many things to talk about. For example, in the world of Hindustani classical music, there used to be one very big thing that used to take place was that we used to have concerts through the night and into the early hours of the morning. Now we cannot have that because, for example, there's a Supreme Court directive which says no amplification after 10 at night. And so all concerts really stop at 10 at night unless they have special permission to go on for a little longer. The use of amplification has changed voices. The need to have, like you in the films, you used to have like mega stars, with many multiple stars featuring in the same movie. In festivals also, on the same evening, people want to have many stars and many young people singing. And that means that the duration of our concerts is getting smaller. Just imagine that if it's in an auditorium and starts at about 6:30 and has to end at about 10 o'clock, then that's just about 3.5 hours that you have. By the time people settle down, tune their instruments, announcements are made, that gives you just basically about less than an hour for each artist. Whereas earlier, the test of an artist was to be able to sing, an entire evening or perhaps even through the night. We've heard these stories of legendary artists starting at, 8 at night and continuing till 4 in the morning when people would take an early morning local train in Mumbai to go back. So I think that has gone. Of course, the style of presentation has also gone. We depend a lot on amplification now. Rarely do you hear a concert without amplification, and therefore voices are also cultivated for the microphone. We are not even using acoustic instruments. We are using apps for Tanpura, and so we are now in danger of actually having a whole generation of artists who don't use acoustic tanpuras at all.
Yeah, they practice on their apps,
and that means the instrument makers who are specialists in this art and who have been making tanpuras for generations. What is to happen to them? Apart from the fact that it's not just about thinking of them compassionately, but tuning an acoustic instrument requires an ear training. which is very, very important. That means our students who are not using that will not have that ear training.
The other very cool part about you is that you are this very nice, quirky writer. You wrote this book called Miss Sargam by Shubha Mudgal. It has this self-depreciating humor. It's of course a collection of short stories set in the world of music. Whom you base Miss Sargam on? Is there another book in writing as well, ma'am?
No. I mean, I was fortunate that I was able to write the stories in Miss Sargam. And there were some stories that were not included in this collection. But, I'm not really an author. My riyaz as an author is far less than my riyaz as a musician. But yes, I enjoyed sharing those stories. And they were not really based on any one person, but they came from my, I think, fairly keen observation, not only on stage, but off stage, and also behind the scenes, what happens. And as a person who has been part of this world for many, many decades now, I've seen and heard a lot. I've been a fly on the wall for a long, long time. And that fly on the wall has been storing things in her head and then writing these stories.
Shubha Mudgal, thank you so much and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.